So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert Cullen. I'm board president. We'll get started in 2 minutes. For any members of the public that are streaming this on YouTube, if you do have any comments or questions as we go through the meeting, please email them to comment@svswa.org. That's comment@svswa.org, and we'll get started in about a minute now. Okay, so I do have 4 o'clock according to my phone right now, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Rob Cullen. I'm board president. I will call the meeting to order at 4 p.m. And we're going to start off with the with the roll call. Erica, if you could do the roll call, please.
Director Gunter? Director Gunter?
And just as a reminder for those board members who might be on the phone and on the Zoom app, there is a icon at the bottom left of the Zoom app screen. There's an icon at the bottom of the left, which allows you to mute and unmute your phone. So Mayor Gunter, if you are there, you might want to check to see if you're muted. Go ahead, Erica.
I'm here, Erica.
Director Lara? Director Lara? Director Phillips? Phillips? Director Silva?
Present.
Director Tipton?
Present.
Director Villegas?
Present here.
Alternate Vice President Lopez?
Here.
Vice President De La Rosa?
Here.
And President Cullen.
And I am here. And I will just ask whether it's Erica or anyone else, if anyone else joins the line, I am watching participants, but if anyone other board members join the line, please let me know, because just a couple housekeeping items as we go through this meeting. And first off, just for the public who's watching, you got to bear with us. This is new territory for all of us, of course, and we're getting used to doing these meetings like this. I'll do my best to manage the meeting. For anyone who recently joined from the public, as we go through the meeting, if you do have any comments on items, the way to send in those comments is via email. So it'd be for comments or questions. You're going to send them in via email to comment@svswa.org. comment@svswa.org. For the board members, one of the things that I'll be doing as we go through each agenda item when it gets to board discussion is I will call on each of you. That way we're not talking over each other. So I'll go to each of you to call on you for any comments or questions that you have, and I'll do my best to manage that process so everyone has an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. So again, bear with us. And I think, I'm just going to double check, I think those are the only real housekeeping items that I wanted to mention at this time. Well, I guess one other one, that when it does come to an actual vote on items, we'll do a roll call vote as well, and Erica will do that roll call vote. So, oh, and then, sorry, one last thing. We're still trying to work out providing interpretation services, so I apologize. This is our first meeting in many years that we've had without the ability to do Spanish interpretation. So I do apologize to the public for that. We are working on a solution for that, so please bear with us. So at this point in time, I will go to general manager comments, and I'll turn it over to Patrick, please.
Rob. Yeah, just a little housekeeping. Yes, Looks like Supervisor Phillips just joined the meeting as well, so we have a full quorum. Just a couple of quick comments. Tuesday, we did a joint press release with the district, basically just identifying our services as being continuing to be open and just talking about generally some of the disruptions that have happened and how our agencies are collectively working to continue to support the community as an essential service through the term of the shelter in place and beyond. We also did receive some additional good news through the Department of Health Services, the federal version of that, basically designating waste collection as an essential service, which we already knew, but since it wasn't specifically called out, there was some pressure from the industry to make sure that that designation was clear at the federal level. And as always, with this ever-changing situation, we are working very closely with all of our industry organizations to keep track of any current or new safety procedures or personal protective efforts that we may need to do with our workers and workforce, as well as the collectors. The good news is our industry is already doing most of those things that are necessary because we do deal with waste. So to date, there hasn't been any substantial changes in the basic protocols we use for our waste workers other than maintaining the social distancing. That concludes my remarks.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. We'll now go to the department manager comments, and we'll start with Cesar Zuniga, please.
All right, just real quick, just a little update on our facilities. We are running a little bit below our customer levels, which was expected at the South County facilities, which is Johnson and Halone Road. Sun Street is also running below, but we're seeing a whole bunch of new customers at Sun Street coming in, either with very little trash. It looks like everybody that's staying home or sheltering in place is cleaning out their garage or doing housekeeping stuff around the house. So we're getting a whole bunch of new customers that are showing up. So Sun Street's staying pretty busy with South Hall, but we are seeing a decline in tonnage overall. Franchise is down. I checked Halone. Halone's down to about 60 tons today, a little bit under 60 tons for the day. Normally they run around 80 to 100 tons in that range, but they are down to 60 tons. But other than that, staff staying healthy. We got protocols in place, and we ran into no issues thus far.
Okay, thank you, Cesar. Mandy Brooks, do you have a comment for us?
My only comment is that if you all just take a look at the interagency staff report that's on the consent agenda, you can see that most of our events, including community cleanups, have been canceled or postponed for the next couple months. So just to be aware of that. Along with our tire amnesty event, we're postponing that as well due to the current situation. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mandy. Ray Hendricks?
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. And Brian Kennedy?
I have no comments.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to board director comments, and I will call you one by one here, and we will start with Vice President De La Rosa.
Yes, good afternoon. One comment I'd like to make, I think we're gonna continue to see a decrease, and I'll tell you why. Because the shelter in place and the social distancing, we went on the radio, the mayor and I, this afternoon, because we're seeing that some of our community members are not respecting that. And, you know, and how do you avoid the transmission is the 6 feet apart. You don't want close contact, right? So that's a message that we, the city of Salinas, are sending out, and probably other cities will come on board. The media is really wanting to give this information out. And yeah, so hopefully our residents will take this seriously and just do what they need to do.
Thank you. Alternate Vice President Lopez?
No comments.
Director Phillips? And Director Phillips, if you are speaking, I do see your list. Yeah.
No comment.
Okay, thank you. And Director Villegas.
No comments.
Director Gunter,
No comment.
Director Silva,
No comments.
Director Tipton.
No comments at this time.
Okay, and I'll just add very quickly, just adding on to Vice President De La Rosa's comments. First off, thank you to you and the mayor for doing that. I know here in King City we have been doing that same endeavor, getting stuff out via Facebook, various media outlets, as well as flyers that we've been handing out both to businesses and residents. And boy, right now it's as we all know, the challenge is getting the word out and at the same time kind of squashing rumors that are out there or misinformation out there. So we all collectively need to continue to put up the good fight, and thank you all for your efforts. Let's keep on keeping on. We're going to go to public comment now, and as a reminder, public can submit comments via comment at svswa.org. So please email those in. And then for the board members, one of the technical, I'll say, issues that we have to manage is that from the time that we speak to when people hear it on YouTube, there's about a 30-second delay. So there will be times that I will be pausing for at least a minute to give the public an opportunity to send in comments, both because of the delay and because they're submitting them via email. So at this point in time, and have any comments been emailed in?
No, no comments.
Okay, and I will, just out of respect and the process here, I will go ahead and just pause for 1 minute. So I will be silent for 1 minute, and then I'll check to see if any comments have come in. So we'll pause for 1 minute. Okay, that does conclude 1 minute. By the way, whoever's, I don't know if that's at the authority or somewhere else, we hear a lot of paper shuffling. So just so you know. Okay, any public comments have been emailed in?
No, no comments.
Okay, then go ahead and interrupt me if any public comments come in the next few minutes. But in the meantime, we'll go on to consideration item A, which is the discussion on future meeting protocols. And I'll turn that over to Patrick for a verbal report.
Yeah, so it looks like I'm expecting that we're going to at least have to have one additional board meeting. We'll be using the same process as we did today with a Zoom meeting for the executive committee next week. However, we are trying to plan for potential of having an additional telemeeting for the April meeting. So we've checked with Gonzales about the possibility of doing something very similar to what the city of Salinas and the county are doing, having limited seating and moving staff and the board around so that there's adequate separation for those that want to attend in person. What we heard from the city administration, though, is that they will not be letting us use the police community room for the public to participate remotely from the board. And so I guess our question would really be, or the discussion is around, do we want to just assume that we're going to use this same format for the April meeting if that becomes the case? Or do we want to consider having at least a partial live meeting in Gonzales with some restrictions on the number of people that can be seated, but also retaining the option for board members if they choose to dial into that meeting as well.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. I will be going to public comment on this item in a minute, and as a reminder, email those comments to comment@svswa.org. Before we go to public comment, I'm going to do board discussion. I'm going to start off by just simply saying that it would be my strong preference that we do this same format for the April board meeting. I think all of us reading the tea leaves and the messages that we're receiving both at the state and federal level, I think it's safe to assume that let me phrase it this way, if nothing else, it would be, I think, prudent of us to maintain this same format for the month of April and then have a tentative plan to do some sort of in-person meeting in May, however that looks. So that would be my preference and my suggestion, but nonetheless, I will go down the list of board members, and if you have any comments that are different than what I just provided, please do so. And we'll start with Vice President De La Rosa, please.
I agree. We can do the teleconference.
Okay, Alternate Vice President Lopez.
I concur with your position, Mr. Chair.
Director Phillips.
Agree.
Okay. Hey, Director Phillips, you got to be quicker on the trigger for that mute button.
Yeah, well, I'm old.
You're
old.
All right, Director Gunter.
I agree.
Director Silva.
Agreed.
Director Tipton.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you all. Has any public comment come in on this item?
Forget about me.
I know. What, you forgot someone.
Did I forget someone?
President Cullen. Villegas.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Director Villegas. I apologize. I'm trying to go down my list and keep everything organized. I skipped over you. I apologize. What is your comment, please?
No, that's fine. I mean, we'll go with whatever, the recommendations are, and in the Zoom meeting, fine.
Okay.
I'm cool with that.
Very good. So no public comment has come on this item, correct?
No, no public comment.
Okay. I think the only thing that I'll add is that we all sit on different boards and we're having different learning lessons from each method. And if any of you have been, or in the next couple weeks are in a board meeting where you've learned something that you think could make our meetings more efficient, please let myself know, let Patrick know, let someone at the authority know, and we'll strive to do our best to make these meetings as efficient as possible. So I think, Patrick, that gives you enough direction unless you have any other questions or need input.
Nope, that's all I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay. Good, thank you. So we're now going to go on to the consent agenda. And I think the way I'm going to handle consent, I'll do the same thing. I'll cycle through the list and just ask if you want any items from consent pulled for discussion. And we'll go ahead and start with Vice President. Oh, no, I'm going to start with Director Villegas. Do you have any items you want to pull from consent?
No, sir.
Okay. Vice President De La Rosa?
None.
Alternate Vice President Lopez?
None.
Director Phillips?
None.
Okay, thank you. Director Gunter?
None.
Director Silva?
Item 1, there's a clarification I want.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and give us that clarification now then, please?
Okay. I was not at the meeting, but in reading the agenda and all the details, I noticed that they have board member Cromings as being absent, yet she voted on several things that evening. So just a correction to put her up on the board members that were present that evening.
Okay, thank you for that correction. And Director Tipton?
No changes.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, we don't.
Okay, then I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve consent with the stated amendment. And whoever makes that motion, if you could state your name first.
Gloria de la
Chris Lopez,
Rosa.
so moved.
Okay, we have, let's see, let's do alternate Vice President Lopez with the first and Vice President De La Rosa with the second. And we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Director Gunter?
Yes.
Director Lara? Oh, he's absent. Director Phillips?
Yes.
Director Director
Yes.
Silva?
Oh, okay, I didn't hear the name. I will say yes, with the exception of number one, where I will abstain. I will abstain from one because I was not at the meeting.
Director Simpson?
Yes.
Director
Erica, by the way, you're breaking up a little bit, so maybe you can move closer.
Director Villegas?
Yes.
Alternate Vice President Lopez?
Yes.
President Collins?
Aye.
And Vice President De La Rosa?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you all for that item. We're going to go ahead and go down to consideration item 7, which is a resolution approving the operating budget, personnel allocation, and salary schedule for fiscal year 2020, 2021, and we're going to receive a report from Ray Hendricks.
There it goes. All right, we'll see how this works because someone else is driving while I'm actually reading the presentation. So can we go to the next slide? Okay, presentation hasn't really changed since we first presented it in January, but I will go through the slide one by one. So the budget assumptions that we used while writing the budget is the final increase of the Increased Organics program that was approved in September 2017. And the rates for those are included in the budget. And the initial implementation of the organics and C&D sort line at Johnson Canyon. And there are no other program changes. Next. Okay, so the budget comparison, the mid-year adjusted budget was at 22.3 million in revenues and 22.3 million in expenditures. That did include one-time expenditures of 1.6 million to pay down the CalPERS and for some one-time capital expenditures. So as I talk about comparisons for the budget going forward, I'm actually going to back those out just to get a little more apples to apples without the use of one-time funds. So for 2021, we are projecting 21.6 million in revenues and 21.6 million in budget expenditures with a very small surplus of $7,000 projected. Next slide, please. Okay, so our projected revenue increases, we are projecting 5,000 ton increase in solid waste, which is an additional $342,500. The final year of phased in organics, which is franchise waste going from 43 to 48 and self-haul waste going from 39 to 42, plus some expected additional tonnage is will create an additional 219,000 year over year. Construction and demolition, we are proposing a rate increase from 58 to 62 for the C&D program. Staff feels that the rate needs to be higher in the long term, but we're gonna get some experience and phase that in over time as necessary. Sales of materials and gas royalties, we reduced the budget last year, but the revenue for that actually has stayed flat year over year. So we are increasing it back, which is an additional 117,000. Investment earnings, although falling, are still way ahead. So we are expecting an additional 100,000 year over year. AB 939, we are projecting a CPI increase, and which is 82,000. And then all other revenue changes are 30,000. Transportation surcharge, we are recommending a increase from 1775 to 1850, which helps recover our costs. However, we are transferring a lot less franchise waste out of Sun Street, so the revenue is actually going to reduce by 155,000. So the total revenue increase are 931,895.
Lines on.
Okay, so the mid-year budget adjustment was for some new positions and some CIP. So the new positions of $161,500 is for half a year. The other half a year is included in the new budget. And an equipment maintenance increase of 79,000 and increase set aside of 52,000 are actually incorporated. The set asides are based on tonnage, so those are incorporated in the new budget. So total operating increases are 292,000 that are carried over from the mid-year. Next slide. Okay, so payroll budget increases. So as I just mentioned, 161,500 for new positions that were approved back in October with mid-year budget adjustments approved in January, 161,500. The one COLA for this coming year for the staff is 154,500. Scheduled merit increases are expected to be 108,000. And then with the new positions, we have been able to decrease some overtime and other payroll-related expenses of 149,500. So the total payroll increases are 274,700. The budget document does have the back out of unfunded liability, which we use one-time funds. So the budget document shows 50,700, as I mentioned earlier, comparing apples to apples, the payroll increases are 274,700. Okay, we are requesting 2 new positions in the upcoming budget. The first one is equipment maintenance technician. 1-2, the salary and benefits for this position first year is 136,100, and this position is the budget for this position is currently in the vehicle maintenance budget, but we expect to see enough savings to pay for this position and any other needs in the first year. Having a person on hand reduces equipment downtime, maintains efficiencies, and reduce costs associated with contract work. It also gives us some little in-house expertise to troubleshoot equipment. Now, this is an oil and lube guy. They're not doing the big, heavy engine repairs and that are done periodically, but it does allow us to have someone on hand to do that. The other position we're looking for is the equipment operator driver. Salary and benefits are 116,400. This is paid from the increase in revenue from the organics within C&D. It'll improve diversion, reduce amount being landfilled, and assist with compliance SB 1383. So this is a driver to help with the new C&D program to help load material to that sort line to recover the clean wood over at Johnson Canyon. Okay, so the expenditure budget increases. So the total payroll increases are 274,700. C&D program is 311,200. So that includes the 116,000 for the operator driver plus other program costs. Organics program expenditures are 227,000. So most of that is increased tonnage that we expect to see. Set asides are increasing by 33,000, and that's just the 5,000 ton increase. So we do set aside money based on those tonnages. The rest of the budget, all the increases and decreases net to a decrease of 22,000. And then debt service, we paid the final payment of our capital equipment lease that for when we purchased equipment when we took over the Johnson Canyon operation back in August, and that is actually being transferred to the CIP budget so that when we're ready to replace that equipment, we have sufficient money set aside without having to take out future loans. So the total operating budget increase is 610,000. 700. But the CIP budget is increasing 315,000. The bulk of that is that capital equipment. So the total increases funded from operations are 925,700. And just a quick overview of what our debt service schedule looks like. We refinanced our debt service back in 14-15 and took the savings ahead of time to help fund underfunded capital and needs at the sites. We did finish paying the capital lease last month. 2014B is paid off in 23-24. And then we have debt service payments, with the final payment being in August of 2031. So our CIP post-closure budget, equipment replacement is 1.1 million. So that's at all 3 sites. The majority of that is actually Johnson Canyon is 800,000, and that's equivalent to what the Capital One loan was. So we're setting that aside for capital. Post-closure maintenance for all 3 sites is a little over 1 million. We're scheduling 200,000 for the organics program. We'll be looking at what our capital needs are going forward and potentially readjust going forward. But for this following year, we're setting aside 200,000. Johnson Canyon LFG system improvements. The landfill constantly needs new wells installed, so we're setting aside 100,000 per year. And then concrete grinding, it's not really capital, but we do, it's still we set aside the concrete and grind when we get enough. So we're setting aside in capital just so that money's there when it's time to grind. So the total CIP allocation is 2.5 million. And then the estimated new cell set aside, we actually, during our presentations, we show it in as part of the operating budget, but it will be transferred to capital going forward. So we're expecting $1 million to be set aside for the new cell. So that's $5 a ton for 200,000 tons. So the total CIP and set aside is 3.5 million. And then just projecting forward, 5-year projection, we are projecting tonnage to stay flat at about 200,000, with AB 939 service fees increasing the equivalent of $1. If it was a tipping fee, it'd be $1, $1.50. Right now, tipping fees are still funding AB 939 services to the tune of about $5 per ton. So that's we'll be increasing AB 939 in lieu tipping fees. We do have a 50-cent increase in the next year for the road improvement program that has been requested by supervisor, and debt service coverages of 178 to 183% going forward. We're required to have 115%, but since we do have large set asides to ensure capital is funded, we're in pretty good shape. And then just a 5-year capital plan overview, post-closure, just over $1 million. We are increasing that by CPI going forward. New cell construction is $5 per ton. We set aside on a monthly basis, and then we'll carry over on the year. So we're estimating $1 million. Equipment replacement, 1.1 million. The road improvement, Johnson Canyon landfill improvements, most of that is new wells going forward for the gas system. Transfer station improvements, those are at Cologne Road. The organics program, as I mentioned, we set aside 200,000, and we're planning on 250,000 going forward in the concrete grinding. So total annual capital of 2.5 million. And then our projected reserves, we're looking at, between 20,000 and 60,000 going forward. That's the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ray. And for members of the public, please submit your comments to comment@svswa.org, and we'll go to board discussion. So either for board comments or for board questions, let's go ahead and go through, and we'll start with Vice President De La Rosa, please.
I don't have any comments at this time.
Okay. Alternate Vice President Lopez?
No comments at this point.
Director Phillips?
No comments. We've been through this. This is a second or third time, so I feel pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah, next time, Judge, we're going to have you do the presentation. Well, I guess there's not going to be a next time, thank God. We have seen this a lot. All right, Director Villegas, please.
My only question is this taken into account the decreases because of the crisis that is going on, or is this just going forward with is business as usual?
We actually have a little bit of a buffer built into the budget. So we're right now trending ahead of budget even for this year. So as long as this doesn't, last more than a couple of months, we should be in pretty good shape. Even with a reduced economy, I'm hopeful that the budget will hold.
All right, thank you.
Director Gunter?
No questions.
Director Silva?
No questions.
Director Tipton?
No questions.
Okay, and have any public comments come in?
No comments.
Okay, I will bring it back to the board for action, and if you could state your name before making the action, please.
John
Lopez,
Phillips,
move approval.
Phillips second.
So we have, I believe that was Lopez with the first, Phillips with the second, and we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Director Gunter,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Director Silva,
Aye.
Director Tipton,
Aye.
Director Villegas,
Yes.
Director, Alternate Vice President Lopez,
Yes.
Vice President De La Rosa,
Yes.
and President Cullen.
Yes, and motion carries. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 8, which is a resolution confirming the General Manager, Director of Emergency Services proclamation of existence of a local emergency within the authority. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce and discuss this item. And I first want to start off by saying that this did go to the executive board in our special meeting that we had. We did discuss it, and I wanted to provide some clarifications on some items. The initial resolution that went out on this item, we did get some comments and some objections back from the city of Salinas, and we reworded some things on it. And one of the things that I want to clarify is that the exec board's intent was not to declare a emergency that went beyond the boundaries of the authority or the responsibility of the authority. One of the changes that we made to the resolution is instead of using the word declare, we utilize the word confirm instead. So it's the exec board understands the fact that we as an authority don't have the ability to declare an emergency. That would be the role of a city, a county, a state, etc. And nonetheless, there were several reasons why we wanted to confirm the local emergency and give the general manager some additional abilities. The primary thing, and I'm gonna hit on a few categories of items, but the primary item was, as we are all aware now, HR Bill 6201 required companies to have an additional 10 days of administrative leave. And the issue that we run into there is that making a change like that, it does require a meet and confer with groups, with employee groups. It requires a meet and confer. But according to Government Code Section 3504.5, that meet and confer can be, there's an exemption if there's an emergency. So in conferring with our general counsel, it was decided that the best course of action was for us to confirm the emergency and then provide the ability to the general manager to, through this resolution, to be able to, for us as an authority, to abide by or follow the requirements in HR 6201 create 10 additional days of paid administrative leave. A few other items that we felt were very important, understanding that things can evolve very, very quickly, as we've all seen, just as general members of the public, things evolving so quickly with coronavirus, sometimes on an hourly basis. And we felt that it was important to give the general manager some additional abilities only as it relates to coronavirus and only as it relates to the authority. And a couple of those items were the ability to enact policies and procedures that would relate to things like staffing levels, as well as I mentioned the administrative leave, and then the overall facility operations. The other really key thing is there may be, out of necessity, the need to enter into contracts to purchase items to keep the authority open and operating safely. And by us confirming this resolution, it gives the general manager that ability without, otherwise we'd have to call an emergency board meeting or postpone things until our next board meeting. And then the other area is the potential for the need to enforce quarantine orders issued by either the local, state, and federal government, which might include sending employees home who are ill or exposed. So there was several areas that we wanted to address within the resolution, but it really is important to note that the scope of the resolution relates only to the operations of the authority and giving the general manager some additional abilities to manage and to comply with any additional state, local, state, or federal rules that might come down the pipe that would otherwise require board approval if the general manager wasn't provided for additional abilities. The other thing that's a little bit kind of unclear at this point, but I wanted to make mention as well, is that certainly we are going to incur additional expenses as a result of the coronavirus. And there is the potential that by us confirming the state of emergency, that may allow the authority to potentially recoup some of those additional expenses, either from the state or at the federal level. I also wanted to mention that the actions that we are taking, and that as board president, respectfully asking the board to approve this resolution, are in line with what other solid waste agencies and special districts are doing, including locally the Monterey Regional Waste Management District. I read through their resolution that they passed, slightly different language than ours, of course, because it was drafted by someone else, but it is what the resolution that we have before us is very similar to the Monterey Regional Waste Management District. But there's been at least, as of today, there's been at least 3 other districts that have adopted identical, or I should say very similar resolutions as we have as well. So I'm going to pause there for a second, because I a couple times made mention of kind of legal type of issues. And I first want to just ask our general counsel, Roy Santos, if first off, if I misspoke on any of those areas, if I need to be corrected in any areas, or if I left out any pertinent items. So I'll turn it over to Roy, please.
Thank you, President Cullen. I just wanted to add, I think you covered all the topics and issues, and we're on point with everything. The only issue that I wanted to add is that in light of the concerns raised by the city of Salinas, we went ahead and changed the resolution and amended the resolution and removed any language referring to the prior proclamation by the general manager. And as a result of that, the proclamation will be null and void. So it has no effect going forward. It never had any intent or any lasting effect absent a resolution adopted by the board. The intent was always for everything to be approved by the board. And as a result of this amended resolution, there's no more reference to the proclamation. It just is narrowly tailored to focus exclusively on the emergency situations facing the authority and within the authority. It only relates to authority staff and authority facilities. It doesn't relate to anything else. And lastly, just so we're clear on the resolution title, the amended title of the resolution is a resolution confirming the existence of a local emergency within the authority as a result of COVID-19. So this resolution is designed solely to lay the foundational aspects for the emergency exemptions to the public contracting code and to the government code relating to meet and confer requirements. And also, as you said, since it is uncertain times and we're not sure what level of emergency or what level of confirmation we need for the federal and state government to seek reimbursement, it was our feeling that it would be in the best interest and be the most prudent approach to go ahead and do that just in case they required something like that in order to seek reimbursement.
Thank you, Roy. And then one quick question before we go to board comments and discussion. If this resolution is not passed tonight, then this would put us out of compliance with HR 6201, right?
Correct. We have to put in place, we are required by the new statute to enact a leave program accounting for 10 additional work days. And we have to have that in place. Previously, the order was April 2nd, but the Department of Labor recently released an opinion backing up the date to April 1st. So we're required to have that in place and operating by April 1st.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, before we go to board comment, then I want to remind the public that if you would like to provide a comment or a question on this item, to please email it to comment@svswa.org. And we'll now do board comments and questions on this item. And we will start with Vice President De La Rosa, please.
Go ahead.
My question, can you hear me?
Yes.
My question is, if we approve this resolution, again, I want to be reminded, does this give Patrick the authority to purchase? He has to make purchases, but he can make purchases, but to what extent? Remind me what amount?
Roy, is that something you can provide clarification on?
Yeah.
Yes, we haven't put a cap on the amount in the current resolution. The reason being was in light of the ever-changing landscape. We really don't know how much he would need to contract for if an emergency situation arose. An example could be if we had multiple employees come back infected and had to quarantine and hire outside individuals. We just didn't know what that amount would be, so we didn't cap it. However, if the board would like to amend the resolution to place a cap on it, they can. That is an option.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go to alternate Vice President Lopez, please.
No comments at this point.
Okay, thank you. Director Phillips?
Not really. The original resolution that was proposed, the way it was done, it was frankly quite misleading, and it looked like it went beyond the authority, and it went the way it looked. He was being the czar of the county as far as emergency services. So I think that was the concern. It was misleading. But.
Okay, Thank you. Director Villegas, please.
My only question is if the things that needed to be addressed because of this, this crisis, why don't we just take it and enumerate them and vote on them separately versus doing a blanket thing?
Okay, is that to say that you have some objections on some of the items?
Yeah, I mean, if we have certain things that Mr. Patrick needs to do and have authority, then those things I think should be enumerated and voted on one at a time. I think that'd be, instead of, you know, the confusion and then having to go back and, you know, because as you stated, you know, we don't have authority. Only the city, counties, and the governments have that authority.
Okay.
So, you know, I'd make the motion to pull the family leave thing regarding that, and then have that on a separate motion and vote on that. So we're in compliance with HR 6201.
Okay. Can you just clarify which items do you object to?
Well, the whole thing, the whole emergency confirming it, I object to that. What I want is, what I would do is just pull the one that we need to be in compliance with, HR 6201. Let's vote on that separately. And then if there's other things that Mr. Patrick needs to conduct operations during this crisis, we can vote on those individually as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go through the other comments on other items then, and then we'll circle back and address your comment there. Anything else you wanted to add before we go to the next board member?
No, I make the motion to, you know, pull the items that we need to vote on, especially the one with 6201.
Okay. And if you don't mind, I want to give all the directors an opportunity before a motion is made. So
All right,
we'll go to Director Gunter, please.
Sure. HR 6201 was signed into law, I think, March 11th or something like that. I appreciate the fact that we want to obey the federal law, and we should do that. And I think that's probably what this whole thing should be on. It should not be just a blank check and open door policy, because this board is responsible to the entire county. And as we voted on the budget, we had very little money going into reserve. I think we have to be super cautious, because I think your funding and monies from people will be separately coming out. And I think there should only be HR 6201. I don't believe there's any other legal justifications for anything else that we're doing on this, unless the council can come up with one that would alleviate the board from their responsibility to vote on each of these items separately.
Okay, thank you. Director Silva?
No comments.
And Director Tipton?
No comments at this time.
Okay. And has any public comment come in?
No public comment.
Okay. I'm going to give a few comments, and I'm just going to be frank. I'm disappointed at the comments by the City of Salinas reps. The implied notion there is that there is not an amount of trust of our general manager. We are in a crisis. We are in an emergency mode. And I am surprised that we wouldn't put trust in our general manager. The exec board met over these items, and we discussed what we felt the general manager needed in order to react to this crisis. You know, I don't understand the objection to the authority confirming the state of emergency. That confirmation really does nothing other than documents the fact that the authority confirms the state of emergency and potentially positions us to recoup additional expenses. Further, as far as the purchasing authority goes, I mean, quite frankly, we need to arm our general manager with the ability to enter into contracts as he sees fit. He reports to us, and we, well, I guess a former makeup of the board is the one that hired him. But we have to put trust in our general manager in this time of crisis, and we have to give him the tools to make changes as he sees fit on staffing levels, on facility operations, on items that would otherwise require a meet and confer and a approval by the board. And quite frankly, we don't have time to do that. There are things that are happening on a daily basis, and as I mentioned previously, an hourly basis that we all are forced to address. And each one of us represents other areas and represents different jurisdictions. And I know, if not already, most of our jurisdictions have given our city managers the ability to make changes like this, or enter into contracts or make personnel decisions. Quite frankly, this isn't a time to go down the path of getting in the way of the general manager. He needs to do his job. I will be extremely disappointed if the city of Salinas chooses to block this. And for the public that's listening to this, they may or may not know that the city of Salinas has the ability to veto any item on our agenda up for action. And I hope that doesn't occur tonight. I think that this resolution is well thought out and is the result of input from the exec board and our general counsel. And nonetheless, I'll end my comments there. I will give an opportunity for board directors to provide any other comments or questions, and then we'll go back to, there is a motion on the table, and I don't want to ignore that. But because there's been a lot of comments now, I will go back through by roll call and ask if there's any other comments or questions. And we'll start with Vice President De La Rosa.
President Collin, can I interject quickly?
Yes, please.
Sure, go ahead.
And sorry to interrupt, my apologies. I just thought maybe it would help if I gave some clarification on the content of the resolution. So the resolution itself, what authority it grants to Patrick is limited in scope, and it's limited to those actions which are necessary to enact policies and procedures relating to emergency planning, paid or unpaid leave, staffing levels, remote work access, scheduling of operations and activities at the facilities, facility shutdowns, and determining essential versus non-essential employees. And those are consistent with the state emergency directives, the state from the governor, the county, and from the federal government. The other portion of the resolution, it does empower the general manager to enter into contracts to purchase materials and services for the authority to mitigate or offset the effects of COVID-19. And in doing the declaration and confirming that there is an emergency situation facing the authority, it enables the general manager and the authority to suspend the public contracting requirements, which would require open bidding prior to the entering into a contract or the purchasing of material goods, which in a quick turnaround can be detrimental. And then the last part is it does allow the general manager to comply with the shelter-in-place orders and any other additional orders regarding quarantining, meaning it gives him the power or authority to send people home who come to work who are ill, or to send people home who have been exposed to somebody who is ill or has COVID-19. At the end of the emergency, the both state and local emergency, if for some reason the staff wants these procedures to continue, they have to come back to the board and get the board's approval for them to continue. If not, then they terminate. they would be in place just during the emergency situation or until such time as the board decides to extend it or terminate it. So they're not open-ended. The board can terminate them at any time. And then the last bit of clarification I wanted to add is there are no other items besides the 3 topic areas that we've addressed that are before the board. So if the board would like to split those 3 items up and consider those 3 things, they could. There is no specific resolution or item before the board or that's been disseminated according to the Brown Act to be considered. This is the totality of what's currently before the board.
Okay, thank you, Roy, for those clarifications and comments. I think before I actually go through and do comments from each board member, I would like to go back to Director Villegas. So can you provide clarification of those items that Roy just talked about, those 3 topic areas? What is the topic area that you are objecting to?
Well, my understanding is based on the JPA, it sounds like a lot of the authority that Mr. Matthews has is already embedded in that documentation already. Furthermore, if we can't pull things, to vote on them, as Mr. Santos had stated, I can't support this.
Okay, so let me just understand. Your belief is that those 3 topic areas in the resolution are areas that you believe that Patrick already has authority to do?
Not 6201 that was just passed by the House, by the Congress. He doesn't have authority to do that. That's the item I was saying, make a motion to pull and vote on that individually. But other than that, staffing and that is at the discretion of the general manager.
Okay, so then I think that's probably an area where our general counsel needs to clarify then. For example, the first topic area is enact policies and procedures relating to staffing levels, administrative leave, facility operations, etc. So Roy, can you clarify how this topic item in the resolution relates to or differs from the current abilities of the general manager?
Sure. The current powers of the general manager, are the day-to-day operations of the authority. However, when you're making certain personnel decisions that involve members of a bargaining unit, you have to engage in a meet and confer process with those members when you're changing the conditions of their work, whether it's location of where they're working, the time off, their admin leave, salaries, all those things would trigger the meet and confer requirement. So what this does, and the intent of this ordinance is to say that, we are in an emergency situation, so we're going to utilize the exemption created within Government Code 3504.5 and suspend that meet and confer requirement and put those policies in place without first engaging in the meet and confer. So then that way, the turnaround is instantaneous versus what could take several weeks or several months to go through a meet and confer negotiation. And potentially, the end result sometimes is impasse, which can get us into court. So the normal procedure is far more detailed and lengthy, whereas this is meant to have a quicker turnaround so that we can get those staffing changes where, for example, it's creating the rotation at Johnson Canyon to ensure that you always have healthy and active workers on site. So you're rotating them in and out. So one, they're not getting exhausted. And then two, if there's a potential that one may have symptoms but not know that they're a carrier, it gives them time, you give them time off, and then those symptoms can come out, and then you rotate them out of the working unit. So something like that, we could put in place that rotation, quickly within a day, versus having to go to the bargaining unit and then propose these changes and then meeting and conferring with them.
Okay.
Okay,
So
I have no problem. We can pull that and vote on that separately as well.
Okay, just for a minute, I apologize for interrupting, but whoever's controlling the presentation, could you please go to attachment 5 on this item? So it's attachment 5, which is the COVID-19 operational and staffing scenarios. And if you could put that up on the screen on the presentation so we can see that.
Yes, Ernesto's controlling that right now, so he's
okay. So yeah, again, for the board members, what I want to refer to is attachment 5, which is the COVID-19 operational and staffing scenarios. I think it's like page 279 or so. It's way down there. Yeah, there we go. So it's, go down. It's page 278 then, the operational staffing scenarios. And so these are some of the staffing scenarios, and what Roy was just talking about is the plan that has been worked on by the authority staff is having a rotation of employees. So you have groups of employees that rotate, so that way, God forbid, one of the groups gets COVID-19, that we have essentially a separated group that could come in, and this is is a good way to protect ourselves so we can maintain services. So that's the type of thing, Roy, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the kind of thing that with absent this resolution, or if this resolution doesn't pass, then instead of us immediately being able to enact this to keep our employees safe and to maintain this essential operation, if we don't pass the resolution, then the alternative would be this would be subject to meet and confer. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it would be subject to meet and confer before it could be approved by the board.
Yeah.
So it would first be met and conferred on, and then have to come back to the board for approval.
Yeah. Okay. And so this is the part of the emergency response plan that the authority staff, general manager and authority staff have put together, and that's why it's in this resolution. If we do not pass that component of the resolution, then we cannot enact that staffing rotation to protect our staff and maintain an essential service. So I want to make sure that that is crystal clear if that's not passed. Okay, so
I'd like to.
Well, Director Villegas, I did interrupt you, so go ahead, and I apologize. Please go ahead and finish your comment or question.
No, my position is still the same. If we need to pull things and enumerate them and vote on them, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is, wrapping it all up in a declaration to confirm an emergency crisis. So, you know, but Mr. Santos says now we can't pull those things. Is that correct, Mr. Santos?
No, what I'm saying is you can pull. Sorry, let me pull it up so I get it correct. So under number 4 within the resolution, so you have now therefore, and if you go down to number 4, and those are the enumerated powers, functions, and duties of the general manager. You can pull out, and if you wanted to, and vote separately on A, B, or C. However, you cannot pull out and vote on 10 days of sick leave. That is not currently before the board. There's nothing before the board to consider on that item. So that was what I was meaning when I said you can't separate that out and vote on it.
Is that number 2, paid administrative leave?
That exhibit is just an exhibit. It's not a part of the resolution. It was informational items for the board to show what the staff had created in order to address COVID-19.
Okay.
Okay, let's go through and give the other board members a chance to either comment or ask questions. And let's go to Vice President De La Rosa.
I'm trying to gather my thoughts. Can I pass, please?
Yeah, I'll come back to you. And then I do want to make mention, I see that alternate Vice President Lopez did leave the meeting. He did have another meeting at 5 o'clock and he sends his apologies. Let's go to Director Phillips, please.
Well, I think certainly there's a number of these things that Patrick should have control on, but he should have a lot more latitude in dealing with situations in consideration of the virus and what we're impacted. So yeah, I'm in favor of him having more authority, but you know, if there's no limits on it, he could enter into any contract as well intentioned, but he could enter into a $4 or $5 million contract without at least going to the executive board. So we certainly haven't done that at the county to said to our CAO, now that we have this crisis, you can do anything you want and enter into any contract you want, no matter what the limit is, without coming back before the board. And so we have special meetings set up periodically so we can deal with the issues that come up and make decisions. So I'm all in favor of more authority going to Patrick as it relates to the virus, but not unlimited authority.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Let's go down to Director Gunter, please.
Well, I'm a little bit shocked, and I realize, Mr. Cullen, you may not like City of Salinas' attitude or what we do, but that we don't already have an emergency plan in place, I know that we have a lot of rules and regulations, and for some reason, how this ever slipped by all of you more intelligent people than me is just shocking. I'm all for HR 6201. I am not for the rest of the hoopla, and I think he can do his job. You can have emergency meetings of this board, and that's what most agencies are doing. They're not just throwing the door open saying, we've surrendered, because we owe the taxpayers respect and dignity, and by us not doing our job, we're not doing it. Thank you.
Director Silva?
I don't have any comments at this time.
Director Tipton?
No comments at this time.
Okay, and then we'll go back to Vice President De La Rosa.
Yes, thank you, President Cullen. In the executive board, I was supportive, and I have to say that after coming back and really reading and I kind of felt uncomfortable, and I did get legal advice, and And yes, I also feel that, Patrick, you have a lot of authority, and it isn't that you're not being trusted, it's that I think we need to do the correct thing. And I feel that yes, we are supportive of HR 201. And also I concur that, Patrick, you have all the authority, related to, what's going on with the virus. And yeah, and I'm the one that brought up about the contract, What
Okay.
does that mean?
Okay, so let me focus these comments. I think based on what I've heard, certainly 4A, we need to pass both to comply with 6201, but also to make these staffing changes so that we can do that rotation of employees and change staffing levels without having to go through a meet and confer and then a board approval process. 4C is another one that's pretty straightforward. That's authorizing the general manager to assist with any lawful order, including the enforcement of an order of quarantine. So the main sticking point is around 4B. It would be my suggestion, and to Director Phillips' comments, is that perhaps we put in a capped dollar amount, and then we add language in surrounding perhaps if it exceeds a dollar amount, that it's approval of an emergency meeting of the exec board up to maybe another dollar amount, and then another dollar amount that's an emergency meeting of the full board. I hear the comments and the concerns, and I'm trying to balance those things. One of my concerns about if we just went the route of not increasing general managers' purchasing authority, but instead have it go to an emergency meeting of the board, is we're all dealing with emergency board meetings, and they're coming left and right. And just for the simple fact of the logistics of if something happens and we need to do an emergency meeting the next day, or 2 days later, just the logistics of getting a quorum, I have some really strong concerns about. So I will suggest the idea that on item B, that we amend it, insert a dollar amount as a cap, and then another cap that would be to a emergency meeting of the executive board for approval, and then another dollar amount that's the would need to go to an emergency meeting of the full board. And hopefully that is something that balances the need for us to react very quickly and give the general manager ability to react to things very quickly in this evolving situation, while also being good fiscal stewards of the public's money. And let me go to Director Phillips first, because I was kind of adding on some thoughts that related to his comments. So any thoughts on that, Director Phillips?
No, what's Patrick's authority now to contract?
50,000.
Yeah, I would think we'd at least want to double that to 100,000, 150,000 in under these circumstances,
Okay. Process-wise, what I'm going to do is go to Director Villegas, because we do still have a motion on the floor. And Director Villegas, will you either restate your motion or revise your motion based on comments made?
Yeah, my motion's the same. We could pull the thing for HR 6201 and vote on that, and then pull any other ones that we're allowed to by the Brown Act to vote on those separately.
Okay, so we've been using the word 6201, but that's item A, which allows us to comply with 6201. So are you saying that the first motion is to approve the resolution that only includes 4A and not 4B and not 4C?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the resolution as stated, with the amendment of the removal of items 4B and 4C, and that's a first by Director Villegas. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay,
The
and that
mayor.
was That was Director Gunter? Okay.
Correct.
And is there any comments? Oh, I apologize. I need to go to public comment. Have any public comments come in on this?
No, no public comment.
Okay. And before I call for the vote, I just want to give one last opportunity. Do any directors have a comment before I call for the vote? Okay, hearing none, then can we do a roll call vote, please?
Director Gunter,
Yes.
Director Phillips,
Not on this motion, no.
Director Silva,
No.
Director Tipton,
No.
Director Villegas,
Yes.
Alternate Vice President Lopez is out. Vice President De La Rosa
Yes.
and President Cullen.
And I vote yes. And I think based on that, did the motion carry? I think so.
Motion 4-3.
Yeah, carry.
Okay, so I'm sorry, that was a yes then?
Yes.
Okay, so that motion carries. I'm now going to entertain a motion to approve the resolution as stated with the removal of item A because we've already passed that, with the removal of item B. So it would only contain item C, which would allow the general manager to expressly authorize to assist with any lawful order, including the enforcement of any order of quarantine, as well as ordering potentially ill authority employees to leave the workplace, authorizing certain authority employees to work remotely, taking steps to limit non-essential contact by authority employees to address the effects of COVID-19. So that's a motion that I'm entertaining that would include only item 4C.
That's the only one.
And
So
I'll
moved.
second it. De La Rosa seconds it.
Villegas moved it.
So I apologize for that. Director Villegas with the first and Director De La Rosa with the second.
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Director Gunter,
Yes.
Director Phillips,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Tipton,
Yes.
Director Villegas,
Yes.
Vice President De La Rosa,
Yes.
President Cullen.
Yes. Okay, that motion carries. And then I will, let's see, I'm going to ask Director Phillips then, would you like to make a motion as it relates to item 4B?
I don't have that before. Is that,
That's the contracting.
yeah, I would authorize we expand the general manager's ability to contract up to 100,000 without going to the board. If it's over 100,000, he takes it to the executive committee up to 250,000, and then it would have to come to the board.
I will
Okay.
second.
And was that Director Silva?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have a first and a second, and can we do a roll call vote, please?
Director Gunter,
No.
Director Phillips,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Tipton,
Yes.
Director Villegas,
No.
Vice President De La Rosa,
No.
President Cullen.
And I vote aye. And so that motion does not carry, correct?
Correct.
And Roy, can you please explain to the public why that motion did not pass?
Yes, President Cullen. While that vote didn't pass because under the current JPA agreement entered into between all the member agencies, at least one member of the City of Salinas board members, the 3 board members, must vote in the affirmative, and that is in a yes on any action item of the board in order for it to be approved. And with the 3 no votes and not a yes vote, the item fails.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And before we go to the next item, I do want to I want to see Patrick, because we haven't asked you a question. Do you have any strong concerns related to the authority operations by us not passing item 4B?
I don't have any concerns today. I think, we've worked through this at great detail the last 3 weeks. I think the most significant contract we could be faced with, I think was talked about earlier, and that is assuming we have a significant illness in our skilled worker set, meaning our heavy equipment operators and/or our truck drivers, which case we'd have to go out and enter into a number. Under this scenario, we'd have to go out and enter into a number of contracts that are under $50,000 with the expanded authority, would at least allow us to potentially go with a single vendor. I don't, at this point, anticipate we have any significant capital equipment purchases that would exceed that existing authority. It's primarily really around operational contracts that we may have to enter into if we see a significant illness move into the staff.
Yeah, okay. And if that were to occur, we can always do an emergency board meeting to address that at that time.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Hey, just board members, thank you for us all getting through that issue. I know it was complex and had a lot of issues attached, but my perspective is at least we've given the tools to the general manager and the managers to be able to react pretty well to the coronavirus. And so anyways, thank you guys for kind of going through that issue. So I'll leave it at that. Let's go on to item 9, please, which is a resolution approving an adjustment to the operating budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. And we're going to receive a report from Ray, please.
Okay, this is going to be really quick. The 80 hours of additional time off that was just approved in the last resolution is an additional cost of $250,000 to the authority. Staff is recommending using part of the $1.6 million in operating reserves to fund this. It is a one-time expense, hopefully. And that's what our operating reserves are for.
Okay, thank you. And if the public has any comment on this, please submit that via email to comment@svswa.org. And we'll go to board discussion on this item. We'll go down the list again for any comments or questions on this item. We'll start with Vice President De La Rosa, please.
I just have a question. When are we going to see a separate budget that shows if Salinas withdraws? Have we thought of doing that budget at all? What it would look like? It could be a future agenda item, maybe. I don't know.
We went through this process last year, and we did kind of refresh numbers last month.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe we need to see it again, maybe.
Yeah, I think we can have that again if you'd like on a future agenda. But yeah, we had that last month. Let's see, we're going to go to Director Phillips next, please.
No comment.
Okay, Director Villegas.
No comment.
Director Gunter.
No comment.
Director Silva.
The $250,000, what is the expected duration of that? Is that to cover 1 month, 2 months, anticipated 3 months? Do we have a timeline?
That's actually going to be built into the budget. That's for an additional 80 hours of time off benefits for 59 employees.
Okay, thank you.
That will work through our week plan. That should allow the rotation of about a third of our operating staff in and out of the locations to keep a core group healthy and to cover a good percentage of our office staff that are out on paid administrative leave. So hoping that will last us through a 6-week period.
Okay, and Director Tipton?
No comments at this time.
Okay. Has any public comment come in on this item?
No, no public comment.
Okay, and then this item is on for input and direction, not for approval. Was there any other input or direction that you needed, Ray?
No, I thought it was on for approval.
Sorry, I'm just reading off the agenda that's in front of me. It says provide input and direction.
There is an attached resolution that requires approval.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see that in the packet. I guess it's just on the agenda. It says provide input and direction. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented, and whoever makes that motion, if you could state your name, please.
So moved. De La Rosa.
Silva, second.
Okay, we have a first and a second, and if we could do a roll call vote, please.
Director Gunter,
Yes.
Director Phillips,
Aye.
Director Silva,
Aye.
Director Tipton,
Aye.
Director Villegas,
Yes.
Vice President De La Rosa,
Aye.
President Collins.
Yes, and motion carries, and we'll go on to item number 10, which is an update on the City of Salinas one-year notice of intent to withdraw from the joint powers agreement with the Salinas Valley Solid Waste Authority. Reminder to the public, if you would like to submit a comment or a question on this item, please email it to comment@svswa.org. And let's see, I'm going to start off by saying that, boy, right before the whole coronavirus stuff hit, we did have a meeting scheduled with the City of Salinas. So I was going to be Patrick, myself, Mayor of Salinas, and City Manager. We had a meeting scheduled, and then coronavirus hit. So that meeting has been rescheduled. We have it scheduled for April 13th, and don't have a time set yet, but I believe it'll be the 4 of us that will be meeting on April 13th. So I have nothing more to add under my portion of the report. But Patrick, do you have anything to add on this item?
No, I don't. That was the only update I had available at this point.
Okay. All right, we'll go to board discussion on this item. And Vice President De La Rosa?
No comments.
Director Phillips?
No, nothing to comment on.
Yep. Director Villegas?
No comment.
Director Gunter?
Nothing at this time. We look forward to the meeting with you and Patrick.
Director Silva?
No comments.
Director Tipton?
No comments.
Any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Okay, we'll move on to future agenda items. And it's the view ahead schedule. Patrick, is there anything that you wanted to comment on the future agenda items?
Yes, if Ernesto, could you pull up the view ahead schedule? Just 1 second. Takes him a second to move this forward for us.
While he's doing that, I'm going to make mention to the public that after this item, we will be going into closed session on 3 items. One is real property negotiations. The other item is, I got to go back to my agenda here. Let's see, the second item we're going to be going into closed session on is the threat to public services and our facilities, consideration of tactical response plan consultation. And the third item is labor negotiations with General Manager Patrick Matthews. And if anyone from the public does wish to provide a comment on any of those closed session items, please do so now by emailing comment@svswa.org. And now that we have the view ahead schedule up, Patrick, any of those items you want to highlight?
Well, as usual, we have a number of presentation items that very likely are going to get pushed forward. like our awards and our recognitions. Those have been pushed forward for March. We'll likely be continuing to push those forward until the board reconvenes in open session face-to-face meetings. So those first two will. The big issue, obviously, on the April is we will have the final rate hearing for the budget that was just approved. The board has already received that presentation previously, as well as the executive committee. But because of the timing of this meeting and the 15-day requirement for posting notices on rate hearings, we have pushed that to the regular April meeting. So again, relatively light meeting. I will make one comment on the closed session. I don't believe we have any items under number 13, which is the threat to public services and or facilities consideration. I'd ask General Counsel if he has any additional items that we need to discuss under that. At this point, it is just a placeholder in the event we need to discuss sensitive matters related to our COVID-19 related response plan at this point, but I don't have anything today.
I don't have anything to add to that one either, Patrick. So we just left it on there to make sure in case something came up.
So if any board members have any additional additions or edits or requests, you can provide them now, or feel free to forward them to Rob and myself in the next few days, and we'll add them to the calendar.
Yeah, so if any board members have a comment or question on View Ahead, please state your name and provide that comment or question now.
I'd like to make a comment. Thank you, Patrick, for giving us the bags the other day. Thank you. I think you gave us like 400. Is that correct?
Yes, and they're picking up, Street Teams is picking up 400 more in the morning.
Oh, thank you. So we'll be able to collect the bags from Salinas Recycle? That's what I heard, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh, thank you so much, Patrick. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And if any other board members have a comment, please state your name and provide the comment. Hearing none, I have one comment. I had previously reported that I was not going to be at the April board meeting because I was going on a humanitarian mission through Rotary to the country of Uganda in Africa. For obvious reasons, that has been canceled. I will add, though, that things could be worse here locally. Prior to the trip being canceled, I had registered my trip with the State Department, so I've been getting updates on what's going on in Uganda. This morning, I got an alert that said, if you are a U.S. citizen and if you are still in Uganda, leave immediately, that their military has now gone into all the major cities, including the Kampala, the capital city, and is using non-lethal force on people because rioting and looting have now taken place as businesses are shutting down. So, boy, you know, there's a lot of question marks in this world today, but there's times that we should count our blessings, like the military did not come in and started shooting beanbags at us. So my attempt at some sort of humor there in whatever capacity you want to find that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
This is Supervisor Phillips. I had one matter I wanted to bring up. You know, we had our litter abatement program that we tried to get started, and through no fault of the district, but through the county just dropping the ball, we let it slip away. I had it on the board on our agenda last Tuesday to reactivate that and to have the county be an equal partner with the district and the authority. I found 3 different nonprofits and for-profit agencies that want to apply to provide that service. So the county's moving forward with that. Before I did that, I talked to Patrick and see if he thought our agency was still supportive of that. So the county is moving forward with that, and I hope to partner with us down the road.
Okay.
Yes, Supervisor Phillips, we actually I had a meeting with Jackie with RMA. She's leading sort of the reconstitution, and just informed. So we had a good meeting yesterday on this and informed her that we have carried that funding forward. She anticipates the program will or the revised contracts will show up at the Board of Supervisors probably in May. They're just going to need some minor revisions, and that we would continue to provide that funding. At least for the first year, we'll carry over that funding, and then based on the final decisions around Salinas' withdrawal, we'll revisit that if necessary after the first year.
I appreciate your help and support.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this point in time, we'll go into closed session on two items then, the real property negotiations, which is item 12, and then item 14, labor negotiations. Have any public comments come in on either of those items?
No, no public comment.
Okay, then you guys have to bear with us as we, from a technical side, we're going to go into a private room virtually to do this closed session. And for any of you who are on speakerphone or in conference rooms or whatnot, please ensure that only board members and essential authority staff who are authorized to be in the closed session be there, and that no one else can hear the discussion that we're about to have. And at this point, we'll adjourn to closed session. Okay, so based on what I'm seeing on the screen, it appears that we are in open session. Can someone confirm that, please?
Yes, we are.
We are in open session.
Okay, then at this point in time, I will report out in open session that there was no action taken or no reportable action taken within closed session. And can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you all for bearing with me and us on this technology stuff, and everyone stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. What's the news?